Have you ever noticed that, before something great happens, the body starts giving strange signals? I'm not talking about simple tiredness or a little pain here and there. I'm talking about changes so specific and striking that, if you don't know how to interpret them, you may think you're going crazy. The curious thing is that, while most ignore these spiritual signs, a few understand that they are part of a spiritual awakening that precedes the final transformation. The most counterintuitive thing is that these changes in the body are not just biological. They reveal invisible adjustments, coming directly from a divine energy, preparing you to go through a silent, but real, spiritual battle. It is at this point that the game changes. Either you realize and become stronger, or you continue living without ever understanding why you feel what you feel. What I'm going to show you now is not theory, it's reality for those who are among the so-called of the chosen. And if at the end of this reading you recognize yourself in more than 3 of these signs, you may already be closer than you think to experiencing the presence of God in an intense way. Comment here on number 8 if you want to find out which of these changes are already happening to you. There are times when the person notices small changes in touch, taste or smell, as if the senses were being sharpened for a new reality. It's like feeling the wind touch the skin more deeply or noticing a more intense flavor in the food as always. These spiritual signs do not come by chance, they are the beginning of a spiritual awakening that prepares the body for the final transformation. It is in this detail that many are confused, thinking that it is just increased sensitivity, without understanding the message of divine energy. Imagine drinking a coffee and noticing nuances in the aroma that previously went unnoticed, or feeling the texture of a fruit as if it were the first time. This is not just keen perception, it is a spiritual symptom that shows that the body is calibrating the senses for greater missions. At that moment, God's presence begins to whisper through the body, reminding you that the spiritual battle is already underway, even in the finer details. This sensory edging can be uncomfortable at first. Sounds that were once pleasant may seem too loud, subtle smells can become intense, and the touch of certain fabrics can be annoying. It is as if divine protection is adjusting the inner radar to identify what comes from light and what comes from shadow. When someone realizes this, the ideal is to observe and write them down, because these calls of the chosen ones often come disguised as small changes in daily life. A practical exercise: spend an entire day paying attention only in one direction at a time. Today, focus on touch, tomorrow, in smell, then, on the palate. This training is not just a joke, it is part of the energetic alignment that removes distractions and brings consciousness closer to divine energy. By connecting with these changes in the body, the person begins to differentiate what is simple biology and what is a sign of a deep spiritual transformation. Anyone who has been through this knows that it is not a process that ends quickly. Each little new perception is like a puzzle piece that fits together to prepare the body for something bigger. And while many don't understand it, these sensory adjustments are just the beginning. There is much more to come, and the next signs can stir not only the senses, but also the level of energy that circulates throughout the being. It is curious how, in certain periods, the person feels a deep tiredness, almost as if the soul asked for absolute rest. Minutes or hours later, a burst of vitality comes out of nowhere, as if it has drunk from the very source of divine energy. These peaks and valleys are not random, they are part of an internal adjustment that prepares the body to withstand spiritual warfare. It's as if each fall is followed by an invisible recharge. Imagine someone waking up without the strength to even get up, but at dusk, they are walking with vigor, as if a call from the chosen ones had been triggered. This phenomenon, for those who understand, is a clear spiritual symptom. Energy circulates in waves to shape resistance and focus. And, as confusing as it may seem, it is in this back and forth that God's presence strengthens the physical and mental structure for the next challenges. The secret is to learn to listen to these spiritual signs without despairing. Instead of fighting fatigue, you need to use it as a moment of recollection and alignment. When the intense energy arrives, take the opportunity to perform the tasks that require greater focus. It is a flow that, if respected, accelerates the final transformation and removes the chronic fatigue that the modern world insists on feeding. A practical example: on days of exhaustion, dedicate yourself to introspective activities, reading, meditation, prayer, strengthening the divine protection over you. In times of high energy, move forward on important projects, exercise, or serve others. Thus, the body learns to work together with the spirit, and each change in the body becomes a tool for spiritual awakening. This cycle of exhaustion and vigor is just another layer of the process. Many still confuse it with simple physical instability, but those who observe realize that the frequency of these episodes increases as the alignment with the divine energy deepens. And when the body begins to change rhythm on its own, something even more curious happens. Even the heart and breathing seem to enter a new tune. Certain people notice that suddenly the heart starts beating faster or slower for no apparent reason. In the same way, the breath can be deeper or paused, as if the body were following a rhythm that does not belong only to the physical world. These spiritual signs indicate that something greater is happening, a subtle adjustment guided by God's presence to prepare the body for the final transformation. It is as if the chest were a kind of sacred drum, aligning its rhythm with an invisible melody. Many report feeling that, in these moments, there is an inexplicable comfort, even when the heart races. This phenomenon, for those who understand, is not mere chance. It is the divine energy adjusting the internal frequencies so that the person can sustain the spiritual battle that is approaching. In order not to be alarmed, the ideal is to face these episodes as a spiritual symptom and not as an automatic problem. Of course, medical care is always important, but when science cannot find an explanation, it may be that the explanation comes from the spirit. A useful exercise is to observe when this occurs, during prayers, meditations, or when thinking about matters related to the callings of the chosen ones. Some choose to take advantage of these moments to connect even more. When they feel their heart racing, they close their eyes, take a deep breath and surrender to the flow. When they notice the breath change, they let it lead them to a state of calm and focus. These practices strengthen divine protection and help stabilize the body so that it becomes a more efficient vehicle for spiritual awakening. Gradually, the person realizes that it is not just the heart or lungs that are changing, it is the entire energy system that is being tuned. This alignment is not just physical, it is a silent invitation to realize that the body is being trained to operate at a higher level. And just as the internal frequency changes, the body temperature also begins to behave in unexpected ways. At certain times, the person feels a sudden heat rise through the body, almost as if they were under the sun, even though they are in a cool environment. In others, an unexpected chill runs down the spine, even on hot days. These spiritual signs are not simple physical reactions, they reveal deep movements of the divine energy adjusting the body for the final transformation. Imagine sitting quietly and suddenly a heat wave makes your face blush, or an icy shiver runs through your body as if someone had just passed by. These phenomena, for those who understand, are clear spiritual symptoms. It is as if God's presence is calibrating the internal thermostat, preparing the person to endure intense spiritual battles without wearing himself out. The key here is not to try to control the temperature, but to embrace what it reveals. When the heat comes, it can be a sign of energetic activation. When the cold comes, it may be a warning to slow down and retreat. Many calls from the chosen ones come through these subtle changes, which to the distracted eye seem only temporary discomforts. A practical exercise is to realize in which situations these changes happen. During prayers, when thinking about certain people or places, when entering loaded environments. Writing down these moments helps identify patterns and strengthens divine protection. Thus, the person not only endures the changes in the body, but also learns to interpret what each temperature oscillation really means. And, as sensitivity increases, these signs begin to be reflected in the external appearance as well. It is not uncommon that, along with these changes, the brightness of the eyes and even the tone of the skin start to change, revealing that something deep and transformative is happening inside. Often, without the person noticing it immediately, the gaze begins to carry a different light. It can be a more intense glow, a more vivid color, or a more serene expression. These spiritual signs are not just aesthetic changes, they reflect the direct action of the divine energy shaping the body for the final transformation. The skin also undergoes subtle but noticeable changes. Some perceive a natural luminosity, as if they were always under a soft light. Others notice that the texture or even the hue changes over time. This phenomenon is a clear spiritual symptom, because what happens in the spirit always finds a way to manifest itself in the physical. It is as if the presence of God leaves a visible signature on the faces of those who are in spiritual awakening. The countenance starts to convey peace, confidence and strength, even on the most difficult days. This type of transformation also serves as a shield in spiritual battle, as it drives away negative vibrations and looks. A simple practice for those who are in this process is to consciously take care of their own image, not out of vanity, but out of honor to the temple that the body has become. Balanced diet, hydration, deep breathing, and moments of gratitude further strengthen these effects, aligning them with the callings of the chosen ones. As the light from the eyes and the glow from the skin begin to become evident, something deeper is being communicated to the world. It is a silent invitation for others to realize that there is something beyond physical appearance. And as this manifestation grows, it begins to mix with another powerful phenomenon, dreams so vivid and intense that they seem to carry direct messages. During the process of spiritual awakening, many people report nights marked by dreams so real that they even wake up with a racing heart or tears in their eyes. These night visions are not the result of chance, but clear spiritual signs that the divine energy is communicating directly. In some cases, these dreams contain warnings or instructions for spiritual warfare. It is not uncommon for the details of these dreams to be etched in the memory for days, sometimes years. More intense colors, crystalline sounds, real physical sensations, all of these are part of a spiritual symptom that prepares the mind to receive messages without distortion. It is as if the presence of God found, in sleep, the ideal moment to transmit revelations. A common example is dreaming of places that have never been visited, but that suddenly appear in real life. Or finding, in the dream, people who bring answers to questions that were open. These calls of the chosen ones happen because, while the body rests, the consciousness opens up to dimensions where time and space work differently. To make the most of these dreams, a valuable practice is to keep a notebook next to your bed and write everything down when you wake up. Small details, such as an object, a color, or a phrase, may prove important later. This habit strengthens the connection with divine energy and helps to recognize patterns that indicate divine protection acting behind the scenes. And, as dreams become more frequent and intense, a curious phenomenon begins to emerge on a daily basis, the constant feeling that we are not alone, even when there is no one visible around. There are times when, even though one is alone in a room, one feels as if there is another presence there. It could be a sudden warmth on the shoulder, a shiver on the back of your neck, or a perception that something is watching closely. These spiritual signs are manifestations of divine energy or direct action in the spiritual battle that takes place on invisible planes. For those who are in spiritual awakening, this sensation is no longer a mere nuisance and becomes an indicator that divine protection is active. It is as if spiritual guardians were always close, attentive to the calls of the chosen ones. In some cases, the presence is so striking that it seems almost palpable. There are reports of people who feel this type of presence at decisive moments, such as before making a big decision or during dangerous situations. These episodes are not a coincidence, they are part of a constant accompaniment that God's presence maintains on those who are in the process of final transformation. A simple exercise to deal with this is, when you feel the presence, close your eyes and ask internally, what do I need to know now? This attitude not only calms but also creates a clearer channel of communication, allowing spiritual signs to become more understandable and useful. And as this feeling intensifies, there is an almost irresistible impulse to seek more silence and get away from the noise of the world, as if body and soul desire a refuge where they can hear, without distractions, what is being said. At a certain point in spiritual awakening, an intense desire arises to get away from noise, empty conversations, and daily distractions. It is not disinterest in people, but an internal call to preserve energy. This spiritual symptom indicates that the divine energy is leading the person to a space where God's presence can be felt without interference. This isolation does not have to mean loneliness. In fact, it is a period when divine protection manifests itself more clearly, allowing spiritual signs to be recognized without external noise. It is as if the soul were saying, now is the time to listen only to what comes from above. Many who heed this impulse notice profound changes in body and mind. Sleep improves, breathing slows down, and even the heart rate adjusts. This voluntary recollection is often the moment when the calls of the chosen ones are most evident. A useful practice during this period is to create small rituals of silence. It could be turning off your cell phone for a few hours, walking alone in a park, or simply sitting in a quiet room. These moments strengthen the bond with the divine energy and accelerate the final transformation. And when this stage is fully installed, the person realizes that everything he has experienced so far, each sensation, each vision, each change in the body, was part of the same path. A path that is now about to be revealed in its fullness. Have you noticed that each of these signals is not just an isolated event, but part of the same process? Now that you know these changes, the question is, will you ignore them or will you use them as fuel for your spiritual awakening? Because, like it or not, the final transformation does not wait for those who are not prepared. If these signs are already appearing, it may be time to adjust your habits, seek more silence, and align with the divine energy that is shaping you. After all, each spiritual symptom is an invitation to act, and not just to observe. And if you feel God's presence at unexpected times, it's because you're already being trained for something greater. So, tell me, which of these signs have you noticed in your body? Are you ready to enter this spiritual battle once and for all? Or will you let the world continue to distract you while the call passes? Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to continue learning about this subject and understand, more and more, what it means to be one of the chosen ones.